Today, I'd like to talk about challenging boundaries, interracial marriages between black men and white women in the 19th and 20th centuries. Hi, you're in class with Dr. T. Race is a social construct, and there is only one human race biologically. Throughout history, people from different cultures, ethnic groups, and regions have intermarried, often blending what were once considered distinct cultural identities. The so-called Anglo-Saxons, for example, were not a singular race, but a fusion of two distinct Germanic peoples, the Angles and the Saxons, who migrated to Britain in the 5th century AD. Over time, these groups assimilated with the native Britons and later with other invaders, like the Normans, resulting in a culturally and ethnically diverse population. It's important not to confuse this with the recent ideas about the quote-unquote Anglo-Saxon identity, used to describe people of English descent. Historically, Germans and Italians, for example, were considered distinct races, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, when pseudo-scientific ideas about racial purity were emerging in Europe. These groups were not considered part of the same quote-unquote race as other Europeans like the English or French. Additionally, the modern nation-states of Germany and Italy only formed in the late 19th century. Germany unified under Otto von Bismarck in 1871, and Italy unified under figures like Giuseppe Garibaldi and Count Cavour, culminating in its official unification in 1861. Before these events, both regions comprised various independent kingdoms, duchies, and city-states. In truth, all people are mixed due to centuries of migration, conquest, and intermarriage. The taboo of interracial marriage is a relatively modern phenomenon, emerging alongside the racial ideologies of modernity and the rise of nation-states. These restrictions enforce artificial racial boundaries to maintain social and political hierarchies. This construction of race became particularly visible in the context of interracial marriages between blacks and whites in the 19th and 20th centuries, which were met with intense hostility, especially from white society. White Americans overwhelmingly rejected these unions, viewing them as a direct threat to the racial hierarchies that underpin white supremacy. These marriages symbolize a dangerous transgression of the social order, often resulting in legal, physical, and emotional retaliation aimed at preserving quote-unquote racial purity and control. African Americans, while more accepting of interracial marriages, were not always fully comfortable with these unions either. Historically, black communities often viewed these marriages with some hesitation, as they feared that such unions could exacerbate racial tensions and lead to further alienation or violence, particularly against black men. However, within African American communities, there was more empathy and understanding toward interracial couples compared to white communities. Yet, it was not uncommon for some African Americans to worry that black men marrying white women might be perceived as abandoning or rejecting black women. In contrast, white Americans, particularly in the 19th and early 20th century, often viewed interracial marriage as morally and socially unacceptable. Legal structures such as anti-miscegenation laws and social customs were strictly enforced to prevent interracial unions. These laws persisted until the landmark Loving v. Virginia case in 1967, which finally legalized interracial marriage nationwide. The widespread opposition from white society was rooted in the fear that interracial marriages would challenge the quote-unquote racial purity and supremacy of the quote-unquote white race, fundamentally threatening the social order. The following examples of notable interracial marriages in this case between black men and white women, highlight the personal and social struggles faced by these couples who navigated complex racial dynamics in a hostile environment. Frederick Douglass, who was born in 1818 and passed away in 1895, was a former slave and renowned abolitionist, born in Maryland. Helen Pitts, who was born in 1837 and passed away in 1903, was a white suffragist from New York, the daughter of abolitionist parents. Married in 1884, Douglass and Pitts lived in Washington, D.C., at Douglass's Cedar Hill home. Their union faced intense backlash from both the black and white communities. Helen's family disowned her, while Douglass's children from his first marriage to Anna Mary opposed the union. Despite being in progressive abolitionist circles, their marriage was widely condemned. William G. Allen, who was born in 1820 and passed away in 1888, a 19th century African-American lecturer and educator, became part of one of the era's most notable interracial love stories. Born in Virginia to a free black mother and a Welsh father, Allen was orphaned at a young age and adopted by a free black family. His academic brilliance caught the attention of abolitionist Gerrit Smith, who sponsored his education at the Progressive Olinda Institute. After graduating in 1844, Allen became an editor, a lecturer, and advocate for racial equality, passionately arguing for the blending of the races. In 1850, Allen was appointed professor at New York Central College, making him only the second African American on a college faculty in the U.S. There he met Mary King, the daughter of abolitionist Reverend Lyndon King. Their courtship led to a marriage proposal that initiated violent public opposition. A mob attacked Allen, but he narrowly escaped. Despite this, William and Mary married and fled to England. In England, the couple faced financial hardship, struggling to find work, and relied on the charity of friends. Despite these challenges, Allen offered The American Prejudice Against Color in 1853 and a personal narrative in 1860. Their love story inspired Louisa May Alcott's novel in 1863 called M.L. Richard Wright was born in 1908 and died in 1960. Born in Mississippi, he was an acclaimed African-American writer, best known for The Native Son and Black Boy. Ellen Poplar was born in 1910 and passed away in 2004, was a white Jewish American intellectual and communist from Brooklyn, New York. Married in 1941, the couple lived in New York and later Paris, where Wright moved to escape American racism. Poplar's Jewish family initially had reservations about the marriage, but grew to accept Wright. They socialized in intellectual and political circles where their interracial union was more accepted, particularly in Europe, where they faced less racial scrutiny compared to good old USA. Jack Johnson, who was born in 1878 and passed away in 1946, was born in Galveston, Texas. He was the first black heavyweight boxing champion. Lucille Cameron, born in Chicago, was of Scottish descent. They married in 1912. Johnson and Cameron faced severe public backlash, with Cameron's mother opposing the marriage. They lived in Chicago and were dealt with legal harassment as Johnson was charged under the Mann Act, which was used to target interracial couples. They faced both societal and governmental pressure, and Johnson's career was affected by his defiance of racial norms. Harry Belafonte, born in 1927 and passed away in 2023, was born in Harlem, New York, to Jamaican parents and rose to fame as a singer and actor. Julie Robinson, who was born in 1928, passed away in 2024, was a Jewish American dancer who was born in New York City. They married in 1957. The couple faced disapproval from both Black and white communities, although their fame helped mitigate some of the criticism. They lived in New York City and for a time in California as well, where they both socialized with civil rights leaders and entertainers. Both families, though initially hesitant, grew more accepting of their union over time. Sidney Poitier, who was born in 1927 and passed away in 2022, was born in the Bahamas and became Hollywood's first Black Academy Award-winning actor. Joanna Shimkus, who was born in 1943, was a white Canadian, or is a white Canadian actress of Lithuanian Irish descent. They married in 1976. Poitier and Shimkus lived in Beverly Hills, California, and socialized within the Hollywood elite. Poitier's fame and the changing racial climate of the 1970s made their marriage less controversial than earlier interracial unions, though they still faced racial tension. Both families were generally supportive, particularly as interracial relations became more accepted in the entertainment industry in particular. Sammy Davis Jr., born in 1925 and died in 1990, was born in Harlem, New York, and became a major entertainment figure. May Britt, born in 1933, was a white Swedish actress. Davis and Britt married in 1960 and faced immense public backlash. Britt's family was initially supportive, but Davis was ostracized by both the Hollywood community and wider society. Even President John F. Kennedy's inaugural ball excluded Davis due to his marriage. The couple lived in Los Angeles, where they socialized primarily with the quote-unquote Rat Pack and other liberal circles, but faced pressure due to societal disapproval. James Earl Jones, born in 1931, passed away in 2024, was born in Mississippi and rose to fame as an actor. Cecilia Hart, born in 1948 and passed away in 2016, was a white actress from Cheyenne, Wyoming. Jones and Hart married in 1982 and lived in New York City, where they were part of the theater community. Their marriage was more accepted within the liberal environment, but they still encountered resistance in more conservative circles. Both families were supportive, and the couple lived largely within the artistic and intellectual communities of New York. Edward Brooks was born in Washington, D.C. and became the first Black man popularly elected to the U.S. Senate. Jimmy Ferreri Sako, an Italian-American woman, married in 1947. They lived in Massachusetts, where Brooks' political career took off. Sako's Italian-American family was initially hesitant due to racial differences, but accepted the marriage as Brooks' prominence grew. The couple socialized within political circles where their marriage was more accepted due to Brooks' high profile, although interracial marriages at this time were still very rare. Gregory Hines was born in New York City, was a celebrated dancer and actor. Pamela Kozlow, a Jewish American producer, was also born in New York. Married in 1981, they lived in Manhattan, where they were active in the art scene. Hines' fame in the relatively liberal atmosphere of New York's artistic community meant their interracial union faced less scrutiny than in previous decades. Both families were supportive, and the couple were well integrated into the artistic and entertainment circles of New York. In conclusion, interracial marriages between Black people and in white folks during the 19th and 20th century posed significant challenges, especially in a society that constructed rigid racial hierarchies. While black communities were more accepting of these unions than white communities, they still expressed concern about societal backlash and the perceived abandonment of black women by black men in particular. White society, deeply entrenched in maintaining quote-unquote racial purity and supremacy, overwhelmingly rejected these marriages, often leading to violent or legal consequences for those involved. These marriages, despite their challenges, played a crucial role in challenging and reshaping the American racial landscape. Thank you. Please subscribe, please like, and please share.